Hi, Mario.
Hi, Fahey. How was your fast?
I was good. How was it for you?
Good, very good.
On
Really, no, for all of us, really, really good. Where were you?
we were actually at the we were at the SLS Hotel. They had
Where's
a,
that?
it's on La Cienega, across from the old Lomans. La Cienega, where La Cienega splits with San Vicente.
Oh, you went to the,
Mhm.
how was the Sofitel?
We went to the SLS Hotel
Oh, SLS on
SLS.
on La Cienega.
on La Cienega.
SLS.
It's not the Sofitel.
No, no.
The SLS is on La Cienega. It's when you're going north on La Cienega, it's on the left side before you
Oh.
hit San Vicente.
Oh, okay, got it, yeah.
Yeah.
So you had to walk over to show, and
No, we slept there
you slept over there, but then where was the minion?
downstairs
In the SLS.
Oh, it was
in
an
SLS. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What are the Sofitel?
No, no, not in Sophia.
Sofitel had something else.
They did?
I don't know.
What do you?
The only reason I'm saying is because my hairdresser went there,
Oh,
went to the Sofitel.
Oh, oh, oh. Uh-huh, uh-huh.
oh, she did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe she went for breakfast.
You know who on Yom Kippur?
Yeah, good
I
deal.
think
They
you know
say
that
the best ones.
you know that Rabbi Harosh who used to teach at Yavne?
Yes, what
Yeah.
about him?
I think he has the minion there.
Oh, because yeah, she's Moroccan. Is she Moroccan?
No, no, see, the computer. So I think I tell.
Did a big turnout there?
Yeah, and they brought in a chazan from Morocco
Wow.
Where was
Yeah.
this?
at the SLS Hotel.
Oh, very nice.
That's interesting.
Shana Tova, good to bench to work,
Good
everybody.
bench
Good
steward.
sure to everyone, of course, yes.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi,
So
Bernie.
we're chapter 11, is that correct?
Wow.
Chapter 12.
Oh,
Chapter 12. I wrote it in the notice. Nobody reads it. Ernie, you asked me to send notices. What
We're-
for?
We're illiterate.
What for?
Oh, everyone, it's important to send the notices.
But they don't read them.
Because we're lazy. You're right, I should have looked.
Well,
We didn't
last
send notices.
we finished chapter 11 last week, Perek Yud,
Yes.
where the little boy Yehoash, at 7 years old, he had been hidden in the Kodesh Kadoshim in the Beis Hamikdash. Talk about a script for a movie. And Yehoyada the Kohen Gadol saved him, and anointed him king. And so that's how Perek Yud Beis starts. We're going to see a wild story about Yehoash. Ben Shava Shanim Yoash b'malcho. He's 7 years old. He was not bar mitzvah. Some learn people develop puberty or maturity earlier. Remember, Shlomo Melech ruled when he was 12 years old.
Ernie,
Yes.
before you get too far, Mafter Yonah, I was reading the whole history of Yonah. He was very much involved in this as well, wasn't he?
Yes, absolutely. Don't you remember? Yonah was the one. Yonah was he was a Talmud of Elisha.
Elisha, right,
And Elisha sent him to anoint Yehu ben Nimshi,
right.
one who
Right.
killed out the two kings, the Judean king and the Israelite king.
Right, yeah. It just didn't dawn on me now when reading about the
Right.
Mafter Yonah. Oh, of course.
So Yonah was a very active Navi. And then when Hashem tells him to go to Nineveh, he doesn't want to go because he knows it's going to look bad for the Jewish people.
Right. He wanted to be young.
They're gonna become Balchuvas, and the Jewish people need it's going to be a kitrug on them. That's why he doesn't want to go.
Wow. So is that-
Sorry about the interruption.
Yes, at the same time.
People know that.
Well, we've discussed Ovadia. We discussed the various Nevi'im that were under Elio and under Elisha. Some of them they'll have their own Sfarim in Treasar. Melachim might mention them, but then their Nevuas will be discussed more in detail in their own Sefer. Yoshua Melech, who is another hero, we will learn about him in Perek Chav Beis, in Melachim Beis, was 8 years old when he ascended the throne. So the Rambam says, Hiniach ben Kotten, Meshamrin lo Amelucha ad Shiagdil. They have like a regency. They keep it going until he's an adult. Kimosha sa Yehoyada Yoash. Yehoyada, the Kohen Gadol, was the mentor for Yoash. He was basically the apotropos. Certainly during those 7 years. But now Yoash ruled by himself.
He actually was the Melech with the longest reign from either Malchus Beis David or the Malchus Yisrael. He had the longest reign.
Okay. Yes, we will see at the end of this parak what that is. By the way, now that he became king, you notice we called him Yoash last parak. Now they added a hey. The same thing, Yonatan, the son of Shaul, had a hey added to his name, and we call him Yonasan. By the way, in Divrei Yomim, he's always referred to as Yoash. Because here, Yirmiyahu Navi, who's the author of Melachim, is always trying to raise up the Judean kings. Ezra Sofer, who's the author of Divrei Yomim, is a lot more matter of fact, and the word Yoash means from the word Yeush, that there was already because of the way the house of David was acting, there was already a thought to abandon Malchus Beis David. Like we talked about that last week. Pasuk Beis, Bishna Sheva leYehu Melech Yoash. In the 7th year of Yehu ben Nimshi, that's when Yoash took over the reign in Judea. Ve'arba'im shana malach b'Yerushalayim. He ruled for 40 years. B'shem imo Tzivya mi Beersheva. His mother was Tzivya. The mothers of all the Judean kings are always mentioned, except for Yehoram, whose mother was Jezebel. The woman has a lot of influence on her son, and that's why the mother's names are mentioned. The way the Melech is going to behave very much has to do with the upbringing by the mother. Medrash Tanchuma in Parsha Shmos says, Basheva tzadekes sheyisra Shlomo b'na dichsiv lemuel melech masah sheyisar toimo. She like whipped him into shape. And there were other mothers that influenced their sons bad, like Izebel. But the next pasuk testifies, Vayas Yoash Hayashar b'nei Hashem kol yamav. We're going to see that it's not completely true. This pasuk seems to suggest that Yoash was a tzaddik his whole life. Arsher Horau Yoda Kohen. That's how Yehoyada, the Kohen Gadol, raised him. He taught him. But we'll see after the death of Yehoiada, and there was nobody in the world to keep him on the straight and narrow, he went bad. And the details of all that is in Divrei Yomim, although we'll cover some of it. The Malbim here, if you take a look, points out, here it uses the word horayu, like hora'ah. Like when someone gets smicha, he has the ability to do hora'ah. He can paskin a shayla. So why didn't it just say asher malamed, like from teaching? So he didn't learn a lot, but he showed him and he followed him. And once this teacher died, this teacher was very important for Yoash. If he would have learned properly, the Malbim says, he wouldn't have gone off the derech with the death of Yehoiada. Yonasan ben Uziel, Rashi and Radak learn that Yoash is going to go off the derech. But Yonasan ben Uziel says no. He remained a Yasher his whole life. Well, according to Yonasan ben Uziel, it's very difficult to explain the Psukim in Divrei Yomim, which shows that he did go off the derech. Well, we may get there tonight. Tzvi, we're on Melachim Beis, Perak Yud Beis, Pasuk Dalet.
Thank you.
We started with Yehoash. He's 7 years old, and he's now the king in Yehuda. Now, the Pasuk has just described him as doing Hayasher b'nei Hashem. However, Rak habamot lo saru. This is the old problem. The private bamos that people had in their backyard, and they could offer korbanos there. Now, technically, once the Beis HaMikdash was built, you're not allowed to offer a korban on a bama. Now, these korbanos were to Hashem. It's not to Avodah Zarah. So that's why it was so difficult for the Jewish kings to remove the bamas. Rak habamos lo saru. Oda am mezabchim umekatrim babamot. The nation is still offering their korbanos on bamas yachid to Hashem. It's aser since the Beis HaMikdash was built. So it's not completely running according to Hoyle. Pasuk Hey. Vayomer Yoash.
We cannot blame Yoash. We cannot blame Yoash. He was 7 years old. You are not saying that he could do something about the Bamot.
But Tzvi, he ruled for 40 years.
So which years we talking about? In the beginning or the end or the Bamot? All is
His whole life.
Whole life.
The Bamots were never removed.
Okay.
And by the way, it's never been removed up until Yoash.
Yeah.
No, even Shlomo Melech didn't. I mean, we went through. He tried, but even in Judea, the private bamos remained a problem. It's not the first time that we quoted a pasuk saying that the kings had difficulty weaning the people off the bamos. Now, there may have been an economic reason. Instead of schlepping to the Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim, you could offer a korban in your backyard. It was probably cheaper, they didn't have to travel. Number two, they were used to it. They had been doing it for 100, remember, in the 360. So during Mishkan Shiloh, you couldn't do the Bama, but there was 57 years after where they were allowed to do the Bamas again. Then they built the Beis HaMikdash, but people get into a habit. Okay, Pasuk Hey.
Ernie, can I add something interesting
please.
from the Meyam Loes?
Please.
It says that Yehoiada actually was 130 years old when he died. He was born at the time of Shlomo HaMelech. And that then he goes on to say that Yoash was actually follows a pattern when God sees that the people gradually sinking into idolatry, he arranges a child be born who would eventually bring them back to Torah. So it is that whenever Israel sins, God prepares a way for them to return. And that's where the way under the guidance of Yehoiada, that's how Yoash was until Yehoiada died.
There you go.
Yeah, at the age of 7. So I thought that was from the Seder Olam quote.
Yep. Okay. So we'll see. Yoash did good under the tutelage of Yehoiada the Kohen Gadol. Listen to this. Pasuk hey, Vayomer Yoash laKohanim, Kol kesef hakadashim asher yuva beis Hashem kesef over. All the money that's being brought, machzis shekel, right? Every person has to donate a machzis shekel. With that money, they buy all the korbanos, and they fix up the Beis Hamikdash. Ish kesef nafshos erko. There's other money that comes in. People make erech vows. They say, I want to give my erech, my value to the Beis Hamikdash. In Matos Maseh, there is a listing, a male above the age of 20 is worth 50 shkolim. A woman is worth 40 shkolim. There's a whole, like a barbershop list, that if a person makes such a vow, how much money he has to donate. So that's kesef erech. Kol kesef asher yaleh levi shlavi beis Hashem. So there are 3 types of money in this pasuk. One is the regular machzis shekel. Ze yitnu kol over lapkudim. That's why it says here, kesef over. Then the erech vows, and then you could bring in a dova. Just like we donate to the shul, etc. You can donate an adova to the Beis Hamikdash money. So what does he tell them to do? The Kohanim should collect the money, and they should keep it for themselves. And the Kohanim, there are 2 ways that these psukim are going to be learned. One is the way Rashi learns it. One is the way the Radak learns it. Rashi says that the money is going to be given to the Kohanim. And they will take care of the temple upkeep. Cracks in the wall, painting. That's what Bedek Abayis is. Bedek from the word livdok, to check, to make sure, maintenance. The Radak says chas v'sholom, that not chas v'sholom, but he says he doesn't agree that it was given to the personal Kohanim. They're going to be the treasurers on this money, and they will spend the money as necessary for the fix. Now, Divrei Yomim also has psukim that relate to this. There it says, Yoash had in his heart, Lechadesh is Beis Hashem. Think about it. They've been worshiping idols in Yehuda, so he wants not to remodel, make it nicer. So they need to gather money from Klal Yisrael. Right here in Melachim, it doesn't say, but in Divrei Yomim, it says that Atalyahu, the evil one who killed Yoash's brothers, that they damaged the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore it had to be repaired. From the time that Shlomo Melech built, it's 155 years. The Beis Hamikdash was built in the year 2928, and Yoash is now ruling 3061. We're talking about in the Jewish calendar. That's when he ruled. And he 23 years into his rule, because we're going to see 3084 is when they started doing these remodeling, which is 155 years since the Beis Hamikdash was built by Shlomo. Shlomo, in our calendar, is like 930 BCE. So now Yoash, therefore, is now like 780 BCE, right? The Beis Hamikdash is going to fall 586 BCE, 200 years after Yoash. We still have a ways to go. We're only, right? The Malchus Beis David stands since before the Churban for about 410 years. So we're about halfway through. It just gives us an idea where we are. So the Kli Yakar, the Sforno, when the Torah describes the building of the Mishkan in the desert, the Mishkan was supposed to be eternal. It's built by Moshe, Shemen HaMishcha, which is miracle oil. It was not supposed to fall into the hands of enemies. It's the Mishkan HaEdus, the Luchos HaBris are in the Mishkan. It was done al Pi Moshe. It was designed by Bezalel, who's the greatest craftsman. Now, in essence, Chazal tell us that when the Plishtim came to Shiloh, the Mishkan was nignas. In fact, the Mishkan was not destroyed. It was buried or whatever. It wasn't destroyed, and it really didn't fall into the hands of the enemy. Now, the Beis Hamikdash that Shlomo built, there the workers were not Moshe and Bezalel. Remember, Navi Melachim II sent workers. There was Shechina there, right? The Shechina was in the Kodesh Kadoshim, but you can see it started being run down. And now they have to remodel it in the time of Yoash, and they had to do it again during Yoshiyahu HaMelech in Perek Chav Beis, when all of a sudden they had forgotten the Torah, and he finds the Sefer Torah, Sefer Dvorim. In the end, of course, we know the Beis Hamikdash does fall into the hands of enemy, the Babylonians and the Romans. By the way, Bayesheni didn't have any of these things. There was no Luchos, there was no Shechina, and it certainly fell into the hands of enemies. There was no Luchos there. They were given permission to build it by Koresh, a Gentile king. There were no Bnei Levi because Ezra, right? The Bnei Levi, he couldn't, when they did a census, they couldn't even find Bnei Levi. So it's a very interesting sforno there by the Mishkan. So now Yoash has in mind to collect money from Klal Yisrael, that either from the shkolim that are given or the nedavos. Now, one of the functions of the Machzis HaShekel is to buy the animals for the olos, the daily. You offer an ola every morning, the ola satomit in the morning, ola satomit in the afternoon. So if all of this money is going to go for the Berek HaBayis, where do they get the money to buy the korbanos that year? The Radak asks this. It sounds like there's a pasuk in Divrei Yomin that says, "Vayu malim olot beveis Hashem tamid kol yemei Yehoyada." So during Yehoyada Cohen's, they were bringing the olah, but prior to that, they weren't. So they used the shekel from the previous year. Some say they use the shekel from the previous year for the Bedek Abayis, and some say the various animals and the schools, the walls, the towers, all the needs for the city come from the leftover money in the Shara Liska after you buy the korbanos. That's considered Bedek Abayis. Why did Yoash, according to Rashi, command that the money be given directly to the Kohanim? What was the purpose of that? Give it to the Lishka, the Kohanim can be treasured. I mean, the Radak, the way he learns, makes much more sense. Why all of a sudden is it going to become personal assets of the Kohanim?
You're allowed to convert money from the korbanos to the Bedek Habayit?
When what they did is money was put 3 times a year that was collected, and it was put into a room, and they would they would remove money that was needed for animals for 3 months. They budgeted it. Any remaining money could be used for Bedek Habayis. It's in fact it's called Shiorei Halishka. All of those things. The Sar Mishtaleach, the ramp for the Parah, the ramp that was used for the Paraduma, the Choyma Sa'ir, the Migdaloi Seah, called Sarche Ayir by Misher Halishka. I don't have to try. I'm speaking to Tzvi.
Okay.
Tzvi speaks Hebrew.
But I thought that
In English before, but I read it to Tzvi in Hebrew.
But I thought that the money that allocated for the korbanos, so they use it to shlamim and things like that, not to
So the animal, once they purchase the animal is mugdash with kedusha saguf, but the money in the lishkas doesn't have that. There's a kedusha process where it's magdish, like anytime you're magdish an animal. So the remaining money can be used for Bedek Habayis. That's the Mishnah tells us that. That where do we get money for improvements? It's Mishyore Trumas Alishka. After the Maktis HaShekel is donated and the animals are bought, any remaining money is used. And there was plenty of money remaining because it was budgeted that way. What was that? That sounded like Esther.
Yeah, no, Tammy was starting to talk. So it's as the parak develops, you'll see it's an accounting issue. They have to figure out a way to be more reliable, so that it doesn't depend on the Kohen having enough money or not having enough money.
The Kilas Yaakov says that Rashi Yoash was desperate for time. If they would have just dumped it into the regular Lishka and the Gizbar, it would have taken time. Here, giving it directly to the Kohen, they could start working on it right away. That's how the Kilas, because the question is, why did the way Rashi learns that now it's given it to them? Why? So that's his answer, because he didn't want to delay. So Pasuk Zayin, Vahi b'shnas 23 shana lemelech Yoash. So 23 years have gone by. He's now 30 years old. Lo chizku hakohanim is Bedek Habayis. Look at this. They're collecting money, and he sees nothing has happened. So the Alshich says, a kitchen that has 2 chefs, the food doesn't get hot and it doesn't get cold. Meaning, when you have 1 chef, so he's in charge, so he's going to be you have 2 chefs, each one, he'll take care of it, he'll take care of it. So that's the way the Alshich learns. Nobody was like appointed in charge, so nobody did it. The Malbim says that Yoash suspected them of keeping the money personally. So, Vaikra Melech Yoash Yodoa Kohen Melakonim. So, again, there's going to be 2 different ways of learning the next few psukim, Rashi and Radak, which is consistent the way we started introducing this. The Melech calls Yoda Kohen. How come you're not doing the improvements I asked? The Atat now, Al tichu kesef meit makarem ki levenik abayis titnu. Now, you have to, all of this money has to go for the Berka Bais. So Rashi learns that Yoash is giving Musar to Yehoiada. He's his Rebbe, one who saved him. And his speech here now is L'Shem Shammai. Again, he tells them, keep this money. Don't do the Berka Bais improvements from your money. The moment it's put into the Lishka, spend it. Put it into the treasury of the house until you have enough to do the repairs. He basically exempted them from running around to the whole country collecting money. But they should make announcements that the people should bring the money by themselves. The Radak says no, that he wants them to watch the money, be the treasurers, and then they'll start the repairs. And he just gave them Musar, don't take the money for yourselves. Act as a treasurer. Vayayotu HaKohanim, the Kohanim agreed. That they're not going to collect the money directly from the people anymore. The Radak basically says that they shouldn't have any achrayas, and according to Rashi, they don't have to give personal money. So Yehoiada Kohen institutes an institution that's going to be very familiar to us. And we lane this as a haftorah. It's like I think Parshas Pekudei. It's only in a leap year that you read it. Most of the years we don't read this haftorah. Vayikach Yehoiada Kohen aron echad. Yehoiada takes a box. Vayikov chor b'dalto. There's a door which is locked. And he makes a hole in the top of it, so people can deposit money in its tzedakah box. Vayitenoto eitz lamizbeach miyamin. He placed it to the right of the mizbeach. B'vo'ish beis Hashem. As people come to the Beis Hamikdash, v'nastu shama kohanim shomrei asaf es kol hakesef hamubas beis Hashem. The kohanim who are in charge of this will collect the money from the Jews and put it in this box. The Aron belonged to a certain person. They used a box. They were concerned not to add any construction to the Beis Hamikdash, because the construct of the Beis Hamikdash was given b'nevuah, so they got a separate box. In Divrei Yomim, instead of being inside the Beis Hamikdash, it says they put the box near Shar Nikanor, which is one of the gates leading into the Beis Hamikdash.
So the explanation for why they did it by the shar is there were some people who came to give money, but they were tamei, so they couldn't come into the Beis Hamikdash. So therefore, they could deposit their gift or their donation
made
to
them
the
tamei?
shar.
So there's a three-way machlokes brought in Masechta in Yerushalmi Shkolim Davav. Rav Shimon ben Nachman, in the name of Rav Yonason, says that there were two aroinos. One was inside, which is mentioned here in Sefer Melachim. This is for new money, new machzis shekel that's brought this year. The echad bachutz, the one that's mentioned in Yomim, is the one outside, the taklin atikin, for old shkolim. Let's just recognize you didn't bring shkolim last year, you have to bring it again. That's one opinion. There's a Tana of Rabbi Shmuel that says, no, there was only one box. First, Yehoiada did it inside, which is mentioned in Melachim. Later on, the Melech himself he commanded that it be put outside. He was concerned that people who are Tomei and couldn't come into the base of Mikdash, they should also be able to give. He's a good fundraiser. If they were Tomei Mace or Tomei Sheretz, they wouldn't be able to come. They're allowed to go to Machna Levia, which is by Shar Nicanor, but they couldn't go into the Azar. Then Rav Chananel b'Shem Rav Yosef says, no, there were two distinct boxes. One inside, that was for Bedek Abayis, but not for the various kalim that were needed. One was the one outside, they used the money to buy the various kli sharis. That's a three-way machlokas. Pasuk Yud Aleph. Vahi kirosam kirava kesef parot. When the box filled with money, so then Vayal Sofra Melech VaKohen Gadol, the scribe of the king and the Kohen Gadol would go. Vayatzuru, they counted, and they put the money in sacks. As a kesef nimtza beis Hashem. They needed to convert the money to money that they would be able to pay the craftsmen. Not everybody bought money, so they did like a whole exchange. They counted, did a cheshbon, and then they put the money in sacks, tzroirois, each coin in the same bag. The Malbim learns that like we said, according to the one that says that the inside was tatlin chadati new shekels, that was initially they had to spend the money to buy animals for the olos. Anything left over was for Bedek Abayis. And the scribe of the king and the Kohen had to be there to make sure everything is being done according to Hoyle. The Truma Salishka was done 3 times a year. The old Shkolim had a lot of money and it was enough to do the improvements. By the way, the Metzudas David says, it's Lav Davka that it's the Kohen Gadol. It's whoever he appoints. So we understand, according to the one that says there were 2 aroinos, one outside, one inside, why it had to be a Kohen Gadol? Because for a Kohen Gadol to deal with that or to go outside of the Beis HaMikdash would be less below his cover. Look what the Rambam says about the Kohen Gadol. Bayis hayala mucha b'mikdash. The Kohen Gadol had a house in the Beis HaMikdash. Hu anikra lishkas Kohen Gadol. V'tifarto ukvodo she'eh yoshev b'mikdash kol hayom. The beauty was that the Kohen Gadol was in the Beis HaMikdash all day. V'lo yatsa el beiso bilvad b'layla. You would go home at night, or maybe shosh time by yom, an hour or two at night. This is what the Rambam writes. He could only live in Yerushalayim. The Gemara in Baba Basra, which we had in Daf Yomi early on, Daf Tes Amud Aleph, Amr Abelazar, Afal pi sheyesh lo adam gizber neman b'toch beso yitzer v'yivneh. Even though there's a patient has, a person has his account, whoever's in charge of his money in his house, he gives a person he has a guy who's running his finances. He should periodically count and put it in a bag from this pasuk. You have to be involved too. You can't abandon all the finances to a third person. Now, what do they do with the money? Yud Beis, v'nastus hakesav hamitukan, ayidei osei hamlacha. The money was given to the craftsmen. Hamufukadim beis Hashem. Vayotziu l'charshei ha'etz v'labonim. They gave it to the carpenters, to the stone workers. Ha'osim beis Hashem. The Lagodrim, these are people who build walls, like drywall. L'chotzvei Evan, people who are mining granite in the mountains. V'liknos eitzim, to buy wood. V'avnei machzev, cut stones. L'chazik at Berek Beis Hashem. They needed, instead of Home Depot, they had to buy all this material from people. U'l'chol asher yitzei l'bayis l'chazka. Yudal. Ach lo yaseh Beis Hashem sipos kesef mizamos mizikos chatzotzros. They didn't use this for kalim. The money was given to craftsmen. Now, according to the pshat that it was one aron, we understand. But if there were two aronos, we said one of the aronos was used for the clay sharis, the one outside. One inside was only for the Berek Habayis. That's how the Malbim explains. Ted Zayin. There was no accounting done. Ki be'emunah hem osim. They were trusted. The treasurers would pay the salaries of the workers. They didn't have to give documentation to the administrators. They were trustworthy. They were chosen initially that way. Baba Basra. Ein mechashvin. When you have a gabait staka, we don't question him, where did you give the money? And the same thing with Gizborn by Hegdish.
That's no difference than the Mikdash Ma'at. All of our shuls have the same system.
Well, hang on, Bernie. I'm going to make a point here. The Shulchan Aruch says, "Ein mechashvin b'tzedakah im gabay tzedakah, v'lo be'hegdish im hagizbor." We don't make them give us an account. However, the Ramah says, "Kidei sheyunekim Hashem Yisrael tov lahem litein cheshbon." From the two he brings, in order for everyone to feel good, they should provide an accounting. Now that's a gabay who's a kosher person. But if he's not, if there's any question, he has to give a cheshbon. And this is a very modern thought that when do we say no cheshbon is needed? When there were at least two people. There wasn't one gizbar. There were two gizbar. Gizbar yechidi vaday tzarach litein cheshbon. An individual treasurer has to give a cheshbon. It's very interesting. When I first went into private practice, the first 3 years I was solo, I was audited by the IRS. For the last 37 years, I've had a partner.
Let's not give ourselves an eye.
No, I'm explaining something. And it was why? Because we now were a partnership. Partnerships and corporations rarely are audited. This is what my accountant told us. Because when you're by yourself and nobody's checking you, so the IRS checks you. But the IRS assumes in a partnership or that each one is going to check the other and keep the other person honest. It's a little bit of here too that gives born. If there's one person, he needs to produce a cheshbon. But if you have two, the two will watch each other. The Medrash Tanchuma says, "Ein oisim srara latzibur pachos mishnayim." If you're going to appoint financial oversee to the tzibur, it got to be at least 2. Now you're going to ask me, Moshe Rabbeinu, Heich Nasa Yechidi Gizbar, even though Moshe was a tzaddik, and he was Neman, B'chol Beisi Nemanu, he called to other people, Koyre Lacher, Mechashav Yadeim, Biyadi Somer Ben Aaron HaKohen. He didn't do it by himself. He also had Itamar HaKohen to come. Because Moshe Rabbeinu was a single Gizbar, he called to Itamar. And in the May of Yoash, there were multiple people too. That's why there was no, this pasuk can testify that they didn't have to do a cheshbon. Now, the Shulchan Aruch rules that when you give out charity, a kupa ain't a nikvus pipochus mishnayim. She'ein oisin srola tzibur b'mom pochus mishnayim. Now that's in the collection. When you give it out, echad neman al aliyos gizbar. But no, that's to sort of watch it. But the ena mischalekes ela b'shlosha. When you give it out, it's got to be 3 people, like dinei mominus. You have to calculate this oni. How much does he get? The gizbar doesn't collect it. 2 people collect it. The gizbar, and also has no chelik who gives it. He watches it, and he gives out the money based on the psak of the 3 people.
3 people is because of Besdin?
Doesn't say bezdin, but lefishu kedine mominus la'ayin al kol oni va'oni kamaroi liten lo. Just like the schools, right? They have scholarship committee. They look at their tax returns. They decide how much does this person get? How much does that person get? That has to be done by committee. 3 people. And maybe, like you're right, Tzvi, like it's based in, that's why you need 3, like mominus. Then Posuk Yud Zayin. Kesef Hashem v'Kesef Chatos lo yuva beis Hashem. The Kohanim you. Somebody who designated money, a Bnei Yisrael, for his Chatos or his Dosham. And he bought this animal, but there's leftover money. That, like what Tzvi said before, you can't use for Bedek Abayis. The Kohanim would buy other animals, which would be offered as olos. They never wanted the Mizbeach to be empty. They kept the Mizbeach full with olos. With this, any extra money, somebody designated $1,000 for a chatas. Let's say it only cost $900. So they took that $100, they put in a box. As the money grew, that they would buy an animal for an olo. As it says in the Gemara in Shkolim, Nedova Mayu Asuben. If somebody donated money to the Beis Hamikdash, Loichim ba'oilos, they would buy animals for an oila. A basar l'shem ba'oilos for Kohanim. An ola, the hide was given to the Kohanim. Now, Pasuk Yud Ches. Az yalech Hazael melech Aram, vayilachem al Gat vayilkedu. Gat is a city in Plishtim. So Hazael, who comes from Aram, Syria, most of the fortunes they came by boat and landed in Gaza. Vayasam Hazael panav lalos Yerushalayim. Now, what's happened now? So we were introduced in this perek that Vayas Yoash Yashar b'nei Hashem kol yom. Rashi over there said, Mishemes Yehoyada az ba'u sarei Yehuda lishtachavos lamelech. Officers of Judea came and started bowing down to him, Vaso Eloha, and they made him as a god. Amru lo nichnas lebeis kodesh hakodoshim sha'achas. They knew if a non-Kohen Gadol goes into the Kodesh Kadoshim for 1 second, it's risk to die. You were hidden there 6 years. We should worship you. Az Shama HaMelech Aleim. And Yoash the Melech listened to him. In Shmos Rabbah it says, Paraya Echad Midalib Bnei Adam, She'asu Atzman Elahut, Verol Nafsham. They made themselves into a god and they lowered themselves. Chiram, Nebuchadnezzar, Paro, the Yoash Melech Yehuda. So Yoash Minayin, so they bring the pasuk in Divrei Yomi that I just read. How could it be that Yoash made himself a god? By the way, in Divrei Yomim, there was the battle, Chazael, there was a battle. Yoash was injured. As he was recuperating, his Avodim assassinated him in his bed. So Yoash took a wrong turn. So how could it be that he accepted himself like he's a god? He erred because Hashem obviously chose him to be Melech, gave him the royalty. He wanted to be like a ruler of the earth, the Meforshim explained. And the officers were they were I don't know how to say it in a, how do you say it? Like to host like something.
Pander to it?
More than pander. The officers were flattering him. And they were Bnei Hanifa,
They were sycophants.
sycophants. And and if a person has that tendency, he'll, like Gaiva, it'll create a problem. That's what happened to him. So Vayikach Yoash Melech Yudah es kol hakodashim asher hekdishu Yoshafat v'Yoram v'Chaziyahu v'Tav. Yoash took all the money that had been gathered by his ancestors, Yoshafat, Yoram, Chaziyahu. Ves kol hazav hanimtza b'otzros beishos ha'meves hamelech v'yishlach l'Chazael melech Haram v'yal me'al Yerushalayim. He bribed Chazael to stay away from Jerusalem through money. And listen how this ends. I told you in Divrei Yomim, there's a whole discussion about what happened. But here, Yeter Divrei Yoash v'chol asher asa, haloim ksuvim al sefer Divrei Yomim al Yehuda, which we go into. There is a detail there. There was a first battle with Aram, and that's when Yoash bribed him to stay away from Yerushalayim. However, Yehoyada, Kohen Gadol, had a son, Zechariah. We're going to see in a later perek, he gave them Musar.
Is this Zechariah Navi?
Zechariah Navi, but not the one that appears in Treasar. And they killed him. The Jews killed him. So we have a kina both on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur about the blood of the Navi that was boiling, and they slaughtered all those kids and all those people, 80,000 or 800,000 people, to quench the blood of Zechariah. So the second time that Aram came, that Chazael came, they slaughtered a lot of the officers, and Yoash was injured, and he was recuperating on his bed, and they assassinated him. It was a punishment because they killed this Navi Zechariah. In Divrei Yomim it says, "V'ruach Elohim lavsha Zechariah ben Yoda HaKohen." A spirit of God came over Zechariah. V'yamod me'al ha'am v'yomer lehem ko amar Elohim Lama atem ovrim et mitzvat Hashem? Why are you going against the will of Hashem? V'lo tatzlichu, you won't be successful. Ki azavtem es Hashem. Vayigemu even b'mitzvahs hamelach b'chatzar beis Hashem. They stoned him to death. And he died on Shabbos Yom Kippur in Ezra's Kohanim. V'lo zochar Yoash hamelach hachesed asher asa yodo avivimo. Look at this. He had commanded the people to stone him. Who was the one who hid Yoash Kodesh Kodoshim for 7 years? It was his father, Yehoiada. And he was the one, and he killed his son. You notice Yirmiyahu Navi again is silent about all of this because it's a chilul in the kavod of Malchei Yehuda. So this is very typical for Yirmiyahu Navi. Vayakuma v'adav vayikshru kosher. Vayakuit Yoash Beit Milo Yored Silo. It says in Divrei Yom, it says they killed him. Here it says they struck him. Right? So it's less ugly here. Now here comes a really powerful concluding pasuk. V'Yozavad ben Shimat, V'Yozavad ben Shomer, Vadav. These two were his servants. Hiku v'Yamot. They're the ones who killed him. Now, who were they? In Divrei Yomim, it says Zovad ben Shimat was an Ammoni, and Yehozavad ben Shomer was a Moavi. Rashi in the Mechilta says, "Lelamed shenifra mimenu HaKadosh Baruch Hu ayidei anoshim kayotzebe." Now, who is considered kfuyi tova? There's something called hakaras hatov, recognizing the good that was done to you, and there's rejection of that. So we know Lot was saved by Avram Avinu. Who were the children of Lot? Ammon and Moab. When Klal Yisrael were traveling in the desert, and they asked to have water or food as they were sojourning through the desert, what did Ammon and Moab say? No. So they are the paradigm of Kfuyit Tova. So here is Yoash, who's Kfuyit Tova of the good that Yehoiada, the Kohen Gadol, did for him by ending up killing his son. So he gets the punishment from these two guys, Ammon and Moab, that's the siman that we're given that Yoash is being killed because lack of hakaras hatov. Now, he was buried in Ir David, but not in the cave of the kings, because only tzaddikim are buried there. And you see in the end of his life, he was not a tzaddik. And his Amatzia, his son, will take over. Now, you're going to see, we're going to bounce back and forth to Malchei Yisrael, back to Malchei Yehuda, back to Malchei Yisrael, back to Malchei Yehuda. Any questions, comments, or aros? About Yoash the Melech, who was a tzaddik and then became a rasha. Okay, so everybody have a wonderful yontiv. I think next week we're going to take a break because people are out of town, people, right?
Busy with their family.
Their families, right? So we're going to learn the Sunday night after Simchas Torah.
So everybody should have a wonderful yontif. We should just have
Wonderful yontif. Yes, beautiful yontif.
Yes.
Yeah.
And good news from Israel.
Yeah.
good news. from
Good
Israel.
news, that's what we need, good news. We need miracles. We've seen the
Yes.
niflaot, we're waiting.
Amen. Amen.
Oh,